With online arbitrage, I actually think it becomes easier with OA because you're able to easily sort all the data. So we use RevSeller and Selleramp and ASINZen, I guess sometimes too, but mainly RevSeller, and it lets you export all the data to a Google Sheet. So it'll show you the profit, if you're interested, the BSR, the ROI, margin, whatever you want to look at, and then it'll allow you to compare that to all the products that you found for the day. And then at the end of the day, say you're limited on capital, you can just sort those by whatever your most important metric is. Maybe it's ROI. And then you can just start at the top and find the best ROI products and then move down. Cheers.
Fellas.
Welcome back to the Doughboys Podcast, episode 8, where we talk all things Amazon FBA and business. I'm your host, Logan, and I am joined by my two lovely, studly co-hosts, Josh and Cisco. How's it going, guys?
Going good. It's good to be
barely hanging in there for sure.
Almost at the end of Q4.
It's almost at the end, but it's still going. This is being recorded on December 20th, and my ass.
This Q4 seems
my behind is getting
particularly faster than last year's Q4.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in with the hot topic of the week. This one's coming from me, and it is this: retail arbitrage is not scalable. What do you guys think?
Josh, I'm gonna need you to go first on this one.
Yeah. So I'm actually locked and loaded and ready to go. I've got one word for you, Logan. And that is, it's actually two words. Richie Hustles.
Shout out Richie Hustles.
Shout out Richie Hustles. I think that he has probably made a very good case for why RA is scalable in some way. Now, is it practical scaling, like what I'm thinking you're thinking of? No. But can it be scaled? Like, can you grow your business and scale through it? I'm going to disagree with you and say yes.
Okay. Cisco, what do you think?
I think RA. So here's the thing between the two. I think OA is infinitely scalable, and you can definitely take it very, very, very far. But I think if you're starting out and you want to just make a career out of this, a living out of this, and pay your bills, and potentially make $100K a year, you can do that with RA. And depending on where you live, I think you can do that easier doing RA. And the reason I say that is because you're not going to find the same margins that you do in OA that you can with RA. You can spend, $1,000 a day on your daily spending goal doing OA and spend $30,000 by the end of the month and only make, $8,000 profit. Do the same thing doing RA. Your profit margins are going to be up there in, the 20 to 30% margins. So maybe your bars aren't on the screen aren't going to show 100,000, 120,000. They might show 60,000, but those margins and that return on your investment is going to be quicker, and it's going to be a little bit healthier, in my opinion.
The quicker is a big point. I was thinking about that. I was talking to a friend who's thinking about starting, and I was just remembering when you go into the store and you buy it, you can package it up and send it into Amazon that day. OA, you don't know when it's going to get to you. You don't know if it's going to get to you. Working at the prep center, we saw a lot of clients freaking out about that kind of thing. It's just stuff not coming in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and then you have to worry about cancellations. Like if you go to in the store, unless you go into maybe a Barnes and Noble or a Nike, which Nike's still pretty lenient. You can grab as many as you want. Like you can go to Target and take the whole shelf, and most times they won't say anything. You go on Target.com, you run the risk of getting banned.
You're getting banned. Yeah.
Yeah. Target, they don't like money, so that's the problem with them.
They're weird.
Yeah.
And two, you have the issue of it getting canceled. So.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, each business model has its own pros and cons, but I guess if it's scalable, really boils down to what do you define as scale, and it's going to be relative. So like someone in my position right now, if I'm looking at scale, I'm kind of looking at like the Amazon Lits of the world, the Watch Me Amazons. But a couple years ago when I was getting started, I would look at someone, like Richie Hustles or someone who's putting up like 50, 60,000 a month. I don't know how much Richie's doing. I'm just saying, like, from where I was then, I was looking like, wow, 50, 60,000 a month, that's scale. Whereas now, where I'm pumping out a couple 100,000 a month, I'm looking at people who are even bigger. So, what is scale is really relative to where you are in your journey, at what point you're at, and then how big do you want it to scale. I'm still going to say, I think online arbitrage is easier to scale. It maybe it's not the only way, but it's going to be easier to see bigger numbers. Like Cisco was saying, though, your margins are going to be lower. So, do you want big numbers, or do you want, a healthy, profitable business? What do you really want to get out of it?
Yeah, but okay, so I still disagree with your fundamental point, right? Because I can think of one person that comes to the top of mind who started RA and basically did RA for the most part up until like a year ago. His name's escaping me right now. Amazon Kingpin. Like he was going to Costco, was going to Walmart's on a daily basis, had a warehouse, had a team, and they were going out and buying things. And yeah, they sprinkled in OA, but they were heavy RA for the most part, doing TA scans, going through Walmart's, Targets, Costco, Sam's Clubs, all those places, and doing it at scale. So you can do it. And
You can do it.
there's even ASINs right now. Like for example, I mean, obviously this is going to be after Q4 that this gets released, but right now you can go buy Squishmallow ornaments at Costco and sell them on Amazon for double the price, or the Pokemon Mega box set or whatever, and you can do that and buy it in bulk and sell them all on Amazon FBM and make a bag. So you can do it at scale, 100%. There's no ifs, what's or ifs about it. Maybe
You
what you
can
want to
do
do.
it, but which
That's
is easier? How many big
yeah.
OA sellers are there in comparison to your Amazon Kingpin?
No, that's why I was bringing up the workload. I was saying I 100% agree with Cisco, and therefore yes, disagree with Logan that you can scale RA, but the amount of time you put in detagging products, driving to stores, picking them up, the listing process its own is a whole extra workload as opposed to the OA. So yeah, you can talk about the pros and cons. At the end of the day, I do agree with you, Cisco, and it is scalable. But when you look at people like those kingpin people, are they still in business? Look at Richie Hustles. We've talked about that. Like, is he still like scaling RA, or is he using that to feed his YouTube channel growth? You know what I mean? We talk about those things. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, is it scalable, but is it sustainable? And if it's not sustainable, is it still scalable? I don't know. Like people have scaled on it, obviously, but do they stay in that or do they switch to something else? I guess we're getting back into the definition of scalable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it just depends on what your actual goal is and what you want to do. So for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you got a team, like what you said, that's a definition in its own of scaling. If you had to employ people, and that's crazy.
Yeah, and there's ways to hire people, to start to scale your RA business.
Yeah.
I just think, at least it's just the avenue that I took. I view OA as it's easier to outsource and scale that. RA, it's not impossible. There's ways to do it. Pick a business model, I guess. What do you want to get out of it?
Yeah, and I definitely went hard on you, and just because RA for the most part was my passion for a whole year.
Same
But
here.
I definitely see, at least for me, because of the time spent, always great. If you have the cash flow already rolling, if you have it available to you to spend, and you need to spend on inventory faster, you definitely can. Your margins are going to be lower, but that's okay if
Yeah,
you can turn
absolutely.
it around in time to get everything paid and everything back. And it helps me out spend more time with my family and to do this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this, but I always tell people to start with RA, and then at some point, as they're looking to scale, to transition to OA. First, I'm curious to hear if you guys agree with that, since it sounds like you're a lot more pro RA.
Yeah, I do think you should definitely transition from RA to OA eventually. If not completely transition, have it in your arsenal. I think that's what I've kind of done. My journey is a little off because I've been trying to scale. So I went from being predominantly RA to instantly hiring a prep center, then switching from RA 80%, 20% OA to 100% OA, which in a way kind of backfired because it definitely messes up the flow. Because RA, you're so used to getting the product instantly, being able to send it out that night or the next day, and then I literally just stopped that one day, and then just sent everything to the prep center. One, it would take a week or two to get there, and everything wouldn't arrive all at once. So then the prep center had to wait till it had enough units to send out a shipment. So then it took 2 weeks for the shipment to get sent out from when you originally purchased it, and then another week for it to arrive. So it would take 3 weeks from the time of purchase to start to flow.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to go back in time and do it, I would definitely have phases where I would go from 80 to 20, 80 to 60, 40, 20%, so on and so forth.
A more natural flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can definitely mess up your cash flow because, like you said, it takes longer. Yeah, people could consider using the Plum card in that transition to OA since there's going to be longer times for your cash flow. Plum card is basically, it lets you pay back in 60 days instead of the typical about 30. So that's one option for sure. But yeah, transition to RA to OA, absolutely. It's something that I encourage. I think if you're looking to scale, if you're looking to outsource, remove yourself from the business, you should transition to mostly online arbitrage. What you should know is you're probably going to see lower margins. You're going to run into a lot more headaches with order cancellations, accounts getting banned, orders not going through, items not showing up, items arriving damaged. There's so many more, struggles that come with online arbitrage, I feel like. Yeah. So, yeah, there's definitely some downsides, but overall, I think it's worth it because it allows you to really build a business that can run itself at scale.
And something that I find, at least, and maybe it's just me, I don't know if you run into the same thing, but so I'll be doing OA, I'll be doing my sourcing, and I'll have things in the cart, and I'll move on to the next thing, and I literally don't want to ever check out until like I'm done sourcing, because let's say I'm like capped at like $2,000 for the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy the best $2,000
Yeah.
of that product, and then it just becomes a headache because then I have like all these products and I don't know which one to buy. This one gives me 50% ROI, but has less velocity, so on and so forth.
So yeah, you definitely, if you're limited on capital, want to be buying obviously the best products available to you. With online arbitrage, I actually think it becomes easier with OA because you're able to easily sort all the data. So we use RevSeller and SellerAmp and ASIN, I guess sometimes too, but mainly RevSeller, and it lets you export all the data to a Google Sheet. So it'll show you the profit, if you're interested, the BSR, the ROI, margin, whatever you want to look at, and then it'll allow you to compare that to all the products that you found for the day. And then at the end of the day, say you're limited on capital, you can just sort those by whatever your most important metric is. Maybe it's ROI. And then you can just start at the top and buying the best ROI products and then move down.
I've been hearing you talk about that for a year now, and I never knew it until this moment. That's crazy.
You just link one and two together?
One question I have is, if you're going to make the switch from RA to OA, how important are employees? If you're doing it all by yourself, can you keep doing it by yourself, or when you scale, do you have to employ employees?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it yourself. I would recommend, hiring virtual assistants, maybe domestic employees too, to help you at some point whenever you are either limited on time, so you can't spend more money because you have more money than you do time, or you're just ready to start taking a step back and outsourcing and having other people help you. The main thing that they're going to help you with is product research, again, allowing you to be able to spend more money in less time. And yeah, I actually recommend people start off with leads lists when they get into OA because it'll open their eyes to how the functionality of online arbitrage works. It'll open their eyes to new sites. It'll show them new sales that they can source and just help them have an easy transition into OA. And then eventually move on from the leads list and build your own virtual assistant team.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't do that doing RA either. Because I mean, we have a mutual friend of ours, Phil, who's easily doing
Shout out
100K.
Phil.
Shout out Phil, easily doing 100K a month, and no VAs and no additional help. I mean, I guess his kids, but I mean, you know, I'm sure having a daughter of my own, sometimes, it's more of get out of my way than actual help.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, if you're gonna scale an RA, you might even need employees more desperately than OA. When you brought up the leads list, that actually leads into my second question for you, Logan, is if I'm switching from RA to OA, like you're saying, do a lot of my leads lists become invalid for my RA, or do you not do a lot of leads lists in RA?
Leads lists are generally for online arbitrage.
Okay.
Sometimes they're for RA. I think generally for RA they're considered like BOLO lists. I think is what they're more commonly referred to as in the space. But sometimes items on leads lists that are meant for OA, you can still go buy them in store. Actually, a lot of times I would say that's the case. So you can
Okay.
use it for both.
Yep.
I didn't know
100%.
that.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when you were first starting to make the switch, I remember you like really, I don't know if I want to use the word freaking out, but getting really excited about leads lists. You were like,
Yeah.
I need to
When
be
a
on
spot
when
would
the
open up.
exact open. Yeah, you were getting
Yeah.
really
I was
amped up.
really wanting to get on some of those top tier lists because
Yeah.
in the beginning for online arbitrage for like a good 5 months or so, I was mainly using leads lists. So I wanted to be on the best of the best, but the best of the best are usually full. So I would be on the wait list, and then whenever they had a spot open, I would just hope that I could make it, and if I did, I would get really excited.
How important are those for scaling? Getting on
Quality
good competitive
leads
lead
lists.
Yeah.
I think it's really important in the beginning for online arbitrage. Like I said, I recommend starting off with the leads list, but eventually, once you know how to do OA well and can train someone and build a team, it's more beneficial, more profitable, more scalable to build your own team.
So, like, if I don't know anything about Amazon, what is a leads list doing for me? What do I get from that?
Good question. So a leads list it's basically sending you, usually every day, Monday through Friday, a list of products that you can go and buy. The leads list company is doing the product research for you. They're saying, here's a store link, here's an Amazon link, go buy this product, and then collect your profit.
It's like a
there's
shopping
more to it
list.
than that, but yeah, it basically tells you what to go and buy.
Okay. And it's made by people who are already better at online sourcing than you.
Hopefully, unless you're buying a bad list.
Okay.
There's all right. So there's I feel like there's been a rise of the fake gurus in the community. So there's definitely leads lists that you probably shouldn't join. But
There's
I
a lot
mean,
that you shouldn't join.
yeah, there's a lot that you shouldn't join. But there are some really good ones, and it's pretty easy to tell, which is which, right? And one thing I did want to add about the leads list is that, especially when you're starting out, like Josh, like you said, can you find some of these items RA? You absolutely can. Like, for example, let's say it's a pair of shoes that is being sourced from Academy, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have an Academy near me, so if I did order from Academy, it'd have to be online. But it's a shoe. If it's a Nike, if it's Adidas, if it's New Balance, whatever, I'm sure I can find it potentially at the outlets or at Foot Locker or Champs or whatever else. It gives me a shopping cart list of what I can look for when I go to those stores or whenever I'm nearby. Like whenever my wife wants to go shopping and we go to the mall, I jump into those stores really quick just to kind of see what's in there, and I already have an idea of what I'm looking for. And not only that, and this is again shout out to Amazon Kingpin. I was on his leads list maybe like a year ago, and he had a Delta faucet on there that was going for like 90% ROI, and I would have never thought to look at faucets to the Delta brand to source. I was gated at the time, but like it opens your mind an idea of what you can expand everything to.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely opens your mind up to new product ideas. You guys know my 9 ASINs story. That product line I actually got off of a leads list. I would have never thought to go and check that out, but ended up being very fruitful, and a lot of it was RA.
And a
Sure.
lot of times those ones that you never think of that are gated, you kind of it kind of reminds you of what Nike used to be, a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
because nobody really knows how to get ungated, and then once you figure it out, I mean, back to that the 9 ASINs, there was like 2 or 3 listings where 2 or 3 different occasions, Logan and I were literally the only people on the listing.
Yep.
And we were just hitting the buy box and keeping it up high up until we got like the price warning thing,
Yep.
and then we just lowered it to what the cap of it and just kept it there. Leads lists definitely get a bad rap sometimes, but without them, I'll be honest, I would have never known about chlorine back in March when nobody knew about it when it first happened. I would have never known about our 9 ASINs brand, because Logan would have never seen it in a leads list and he would have never shared it with me, and then I would have never known about Delta. So there's that.
Man, thank goodness for Leadsless, right?
Let's
Like, what a
go
blessing.
list.
Shout out Lead
Blessing.
List.
Yeah, shout out Logan's lead list, by the way. Those are all class. I've seen that man source, and he is a sourcing
Despicable
god. Right?
plug.
Hey,
It's
thanks,
like,
Josh.
well, yeah, but it's like watching someone. Have you ever seen someone who's like really quick at Tetris, and you're just seeing the stuff like fall down perfectly? That's Logan sourcing. All right, there's just tabs opening left and right, closing, numbers, calculators. Things are just flying off the screen. It's crazy.
Listen,
So when you put something on a leads list, you know you're in good hands.
Yeah, Logan's computer setup is nuts. Like, never lags, never does anything, doesn't freeze up like
I got a
Josh's
source,
camera right
man.
now. I definitely think we should do an episode with Logan sourcing, and then Josh and I reacting to the sourcing
That would be fun.
for sure.
Let's do it. Cisco, can you think
Yeah.
of, as you were transitioning, any other like issues that you ran into, maybe logistically, that you could help people avoid? I have one that I'm going to share, so if you want to think, but one for me was like I had no clue what I was ordering because I would just send stuff to my house and then I didn't know what ASIN to use when it showed up. I didn't know my cost of goods, my list price, because I would have to go back through all my receipts and try and figure it out. So early on, I found out this is a big problem. I need to solve it. And I ended up making a spreadsheet where I can just enter in all that data from RevSeller. And that way it's just all there and ready to go. So it's super important if you're transitioning from RA to OA, be organized, get all your data in one central place beforehand. That was a big issue for me.
Yeah, and actually to piggyback on that, because I do the same thing, but I have 2 spreadsheets. I have a purchased one, and then I have one that's ready to ship. So what I mean by ready to ship is, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, things are going to come different times. You're going to get emails saying things are delayed or whatever it may be. So for me, as soon as something comes in, I open the box, open up Inventory Lab, scan it in, start prepping it to be shipped out, and then erase it from the purchase spreadsheet that I have and move it to a ready to ship spreadsheet that I have. That way it's all there. And then by the end of it, once the shipment actually goes out, I put it all into archive. But at least I have a record of it.
It's very similar to what we do. Yeah. Okay. It sounds like
Yeah.
it's that time. So I have a quote for us. No matter what life throws at you, remain calm and confident that you will handle it and emerge victorious. Thanks for watching. We will see you on the next episode of the Doughboys Podcast.